Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. And it's time I address the elephant in the room. It's the first episode of 2026. And I have Jeffrey Epstein, the comedian, on the show. So I had a lot of questions written down, but they were all redacted. But here we are with comedian Jeffrey Epstein. He's in town from Portland, Oregon. But you have an accent. Are you from New York?
Grew up in New York, yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
So what brings a New Yorker to Portland, Oregon?
My daughter, she's 26 now, but she was born in New York, and her mom moved her to Oregon when she was a baby, and I followed her a couple years later. So pretty much being around my daughter while she grew up is what brought me out. And that was like 24 or 25 years ago at this point.
Oh, wow.
So, yes, you don't lose some of the mannerisms, but you also chill out. I mean, the life in Oregon, kind of just calmed me down. And it's a very different vibe than, high-strung East Coast.
But I appreciate the high-strungness, to be honest. I'm actually trying to move to New York. And I've been meeting a lot of people who are moving out of New York, but I'm trying to move there. I was there recently, actually.
I mean, the energy's great. I mean, it's incredible. It's it just depends what you're doing with your life and what you're pursuing. And for me, the move made a lot of personal sense. And then I just kind of got to enjoy being in the Pacific Northwest.
Nice.
Yeah.
And were you in comedy whatsoever in New York?
No.
Really?
Yeah, no. It's a later in life thing. I'm in my 50s now, but when I was in my 20s, I kind of dabbled with stand-up a little bit just to know I could hold a microphone and get on a stage, but I never committed to it. But it was always one of those bucket list things, one day you're going to do this and seriously freaking do it. And it just I kept kind of punting it down the road, really, because of other life priorities.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something I always wanted to do. And dabbled briefly, in my 20s, but nothing. I didn't do enough to really be considered serious or good.
Got it. So you never had stage fright or anything? Are you someone who's kind of fine being in front of a group of people?
I am. I think the most frightening time was when I started doing comedy. At this point, it was 3.5 years ago. Those initial few times when you just don't know, what, but then when you do it, you realize, oh, I could do this. And, you get to the other side, you realize you survive and you can do it. And then if you start doing it enough, it just becomes more of a normal practice. You just, if it's a big show, you get nervous, but you still do what you do. So yeah, there's that initial fright, but then you kind of get over that and realize you can do it.
Yeah.
Because
comedy is one of the only art forms that you kind of have to start in front of a crowd. You can paint in your room, you can play the bongos in your room, you could I started podcasting in a room, but you can't. What, you're gonna tell jokes to yourself in a mirror?
Well, and that's exactly right. It's an art, and a science in that you can only develop it. I can think something's funny in my kitchen, but you need 40 strange eyeballs looking at you, validating that, or so it's almost this art that you develop by failing. You develop by being bad, maybe not bad, but you have to work. You have to try it in front of real people when the stakes are low, to develop that tight set. And that's, every big, I heard like Chris Rock. That's like a extreme example. Would do 200 club sets. When the world isn't watching. Obviously people are watching, but they lock away the cell phones and everything to be able, before he's going to go and do an actual, because that's how you find out, you have to try stuff and realize, oh, that didn't work. So yeah, it's weird. It's like the practice comes from doing it,
When I was in New York, because in Seattle, they don't, maybe if it's a bigger venue, like a theater, sometimes they have you lock away your phones. But in New York, I went to the Comedy Cellar, and I was like, oh, they actually take your phone?
The Cellar's a mecca. You have a few of them around the country. The Comedy Store, which is the West Coast, in LA, and they have one in La Jolla, I think for every show there, the phones go in the little bags.
Yeah, for
Just
sure.
I mean, obviously they're way more sensitive if it's a touring comedian that's working out material, but it's just it keeps people from posting something that they don't want posted.
100%.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good tool, really.
So when did you start posting things online, like clips and all that?
So I wasn't. I mean, so I started comedy, like I said, 3.5 years ago.
Wow.
For the first 3.5 years, I did not post content online. So it's kind of you before the podcast. You mentioned that you discovered like when my video.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't have a TikTok. I had an Instagram, but it was only for my personal a circle, and I wasn't posting. I didn't want to deal with it. I didn't want to be always worried about, did we capture that? Like, because every comedian's always setting up their tripod, and it's the game, and and I get videos, like you have videos that you use for that you send the bookers, but those can be private or not unpublished. So you have those. I just didn't want to deal with the online thing.
Yeah.
And so I have a daughter. I mentioned she's a recording artist
nice.
and a songwriter, and she's pretty successful. And her career has been built on through social media, through TikTok, through Instagram. And she'd been encouraging me, like particularly the last part of this year with all the activity with Jeffrey Epstein, which is not new, but it just doesn't go away. She's like, Dad, I think you really should try posting. And so she finally said, I'll set up the TikTok for you.
Nice.
And in November, like just this past November, like middle, she set up my TikTok. I made the intro video. That is what you saw. And that's the one that went viral.
My name is Jeffrey Epstein. Really. That is my birth name. And obviously, it's been quite an unfortunate name to have these last 10 years.
And then we started once a week posting some of my actual comedy clips under the premise of releasing the Epstein comedy files.
Yeah.
And it just kind of started hitting. And so back to your question, I've only started posting 6 weeks ago.
Wow.
And so this is kind of new territory, and it's fine. I mean, it and then it happened on Instagram as well. So at first it was just TikTok. A pretty widely followed comedy influencer caught my TikTok. He took a snip of it and then posted it on his Instagram. It was nothing bad, but it was a little out of context. So we decided, I should probably then do my Instagram as well and have that video. And then so I took all my personal stuff down, and now the same video has gone viral, or reel has gone viral on Instagram. And that's really like the last 3 or 4 weeks.
That's wild.
So I know the game from watching my daughter and her having to play it, and the ups and downs of being an artist on social media. I didn't do it to become famous. All right. I did it because I just wanted to develop comedic opportunity. And, if I reach out to a comedy festival to try and get on their lineup, or if I go to another city and try to get a booking, at a club, first thing they're going to ask is, what are your socials? What's your following?
Yeah.
Even if I send them a funny tape, if they watch it, and we all do this. I mean, we all judge each other, on certain metrics. And I just felt, what? If that's what it takes to kind of develop more of a following and get better comedic opportunities, then fine. I'll play the game too. So it's a tool, and here we are sitting because of it.
Yeah.
And it can have a positive use, and that's, I mean, you get, with my name, you get all kinds of crazy,
Yeah, the SEO must be pretty wild to have a name like that.
Well, I mean, good luck trying to Google me. I mean, you probably ain't finding me, but and that's could be good. But back to, I mean, it's a long answer. I mean, so the whole posting is new, or the social media is new. but it's kind of fun,
Yeah.
getting recognition. It also is motivating.
Yeah.
To me, I get motivated because like once the video started hitting, it's like, okay, now you gotta roll up your sleeves and do some more work. Okay, fine, enjoy the moment,
Mhm.
but also recognize, comedy is about continuing to write, continuing to get better, continuing to think of new ways of improving a joke. And so it's been kind of motivating for me too,
Heck yeah.
to know that, like, or if I have a bigger show book that motivates me, okay, you gotta try and put in the work ahead of that, versus if you have nothing going, then it's easy to kind of slack.
It'd be pretty funny to see Jeffrey Epstein in big letters on a marquee. People are gonna be like, "What the?"
It's been. I think that there's been certain comedy bookers that have hesitated because of my name, actually,
Wow.
being, but others that weren't, like, hey, this is freaking interesting. This is different. You don't see this every day. Once they understand the context, that I'm not trying to be, I don't know that everyone always understands that, okay, wait, this isn't some guy trying to be cute or trying to like make stupid jokes about what is a very, really horrible situation. It's more about me putting a silly, self-deprecating spin on my reality, not trying to pretend like I'm Jeffrey Epstein. So I don't know that everyone always gets it, because if they see the name Jeffrey Epstein on a comedy billing,
Yeah.
or like a lineup, there's always this like, wait, what's that?
Yeah.
Even when I'm introduced, like when I'm brought up to the stage, sometimes the host will set it up and say, yep, this is really this guy's name. Sometimes they won't, which is fine. Either way, I'm ready to go, and I'm ready to diffuse it, in a funny way. But even when I'm brought up, people at first, are confused. Some are like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And then, I'm clean. I don't do anything dark. I just try and keep it about, just kind of silly, hopefully amusing jokes about, having the same name.
Yeah. Well, you're in your 50s, so like you have a whole life to like talk about, versus like what, even Eddie Murphy. When was his first, like, when was Raw? Like,
So he was 22.
yeah, you know what I mean? Like,
I grew up on that.
yeah, like that's kind of hard to like build off of, especially because there's obviously those are great specials, but at the same time you have to be like, there's a lack of life experience that has been lived if you're starting that young, versus like you have so much to like.
I agree,
reflect
and
on.
I would say that as looking back, I'm so much better equipped to be a comedian now than I was in my 20s. When I dabbled in it, and actually, I mean, I don't do a full set on the name Jeffrey Epstein. It'll depend upon how long. Maybe a third of it. And then I'll move into other topics that are consistent with, a middle-aged, kind of dude. Other things in life that we deal with, that hopefully there's humor in. And also you have to know your audience a little bit too. There's certain audiences that I do find, like in Portland, I do okay, but I like in some of the more suburban audiences with more mature demographic, I'll probably they'll relate to some more of my material than maybe some of the younger Portland crowds will, but that's okay.
That's inspiring though, to be honest though. Like, I've only done podcasting. I'm a DJ too, but like since I was 18, so like I'm growing as my podcast grows. I grow, but like, so with that also, like the audience like shifts depending on the guests I have or whatever topics. But like, like at your age, like, like what you want to talk about, you kind of have an idea of your audience going in to where you're because you're not going to be talking about like Fortnite or whatever. You know what you're going to talk about. You kind of have an idea of what audience you want to attract, versus starting at 18. I'm like, whoever this lands on, it lands on it. I'm going to be happy if people tune in,
Yeah, and even regionally, I mean, I've noticed differences, when I do comedy in other places. I think that the Pacific Northwest is probably the most woke or politically correct, if you
Mhm.
will, with the most policing of material. Not that that's not an issue for me,
Right.
really. Um, but the energy in say the local Vegas scene or the local San Diego scene is very different than say it is in the Northwest, and that's fine. That's what you good comedians, and I'm still developing, but
Mhm.
I know some guys that have been doing this a long time, and they're just so adept at understanding where they're performing
Mm.
and the nuances of even in this Washington State, you certain parts of the state, you want to adjust your set a little bit based on who your audience is, and good comedians know how to do that.
Yeah.
Have that versatility, and I'm still developing that skill, and you know, and some places, maybe you're just not gonna hit.
Yeah, not for everyone. What is interesting though is like Dave Chappelle was just in town like right before he dropped his special. So like when me and my family watched it, we were like, oh my gosh, is this gonna be in Seattle? Because there's a lot of like even like Tom Segura and people have filmed their sets in Seattle, and I'm like, for someone like Dave who's become so controversial, does he change a set in Seattle, especially because of all like the trans jokes and stuff he has? I always think about that type of thing, you know?
I mean, when you get to that big, he probably doesn't care.
Yeah. It's like
I
a
mean, he
city's a
does.
city.
He doesn't care. But I think when you're not that big,
Mm,
you have to care.
for sure.
I think you have to read the room, um, unless your brand is being an edgy comedian.
Mm-hmm.
There are comedians that'll come through like the Helium in Portland, which is sort of like the de facto club. And some of the local comedians won't want to open for them because they don't want to be associated with, that style of humor.
Yeah.
I mean, that's their choice. I mean, it's, you know, um, people have their styles and their expression, and not everyone's going to like it, and that's okay. But, yeah.
For sure. So who inspires you? Are you that type of person that kind of like leans away from certain comics, even like coming to like perform around them, or like what do you kind of consume when you watch or listen to comedy?
I don't watch a ton of comedy because I don't want to be too. I mean, I want to keep my originality of thought, which is weird.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, you see styles, and when you see some like when you see a pro like really do well, it's like, okay, that was good,
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I always love roast comedy. Jeff Ross was always one of my. I mean, and we do have roast battles in Portland,
Nice.
and I do them. And they're done with love but I've always loved that. Don Rickles, it's an old school version of that. I used to love, just it wasn't just what you said, but how you said it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always enjoyed that kind of comedy. I don't go to a lot of big name shows, but I did go to a year ago. Sebastian Maniscalco came through Portland, and he had two openers, Pete Coriali. They're not known, and another guy, great comedians, all like guys that I could relate to because they were like all 40s or 50s
Mm-hmm.
with kids and like, like, more issues that it just showed me that it was inspiring to me because these guys were closer to me in terms of, how they looked and what their life situation was. And they were being hysterical about their lives.
Yeah.
They would like finding ways to just spin their reality in a way that was relatable for the audience and it was funny. Maniscalco's in a different league of his own. He's got all that physicality. He's got all the, all the impersonate. I can't do that. I mean, some people have that, some people don't. But I found it inspiring. I was like, oh wait, these guys are just taking their lives and they're just being funny about it. And I mean, I'm doing that too, just with the freaking rare situation of, being named, having the same name as, and of freaking a crazy ass, criminal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's my version of making lemonade out of the lemons,
Mm-hmm.
And at first I didn't really know what to do with, like, it was annoying, when it was always in the news. And then eventually when I decided, I'm going to do comedy, that was one of my motivators was, you know what, find a way to spin this whole name thing and be funny about it. Or try to be funny about it.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's sort of my way of just kind of taking an unfortunate situation and just trying to, make light of it.
When did you first hear about all the Jeffrey Epstein stuff?
Well, I knew about him because I had the same name. So,
Okay.
I remembered years ago, reading about this finance guy, supposed like billionaire, which he probably wasn't, but being, with the same name and being in trouble. Like, because he was in trouble as early as like 2007, I think, or accusations anyway, maybe before that. So I kind of, even before that, I knew there was some powerful, wealthy guy with the same name.
In New York as well.
In New York and Florida. I mean, my parents lived in Florida for years and years. So I was aware of him. I just wasn't aware of, there just wasn't much spotlight on how severe and how much or how kind of covered over the allegations were. So I knew about him just for sharing the same name, and then it started to creep up again, like I guess 2017 or so. Stuff started coming, and it was weird.
It's funny because like in the early 2000s, there's like, I think it was like MTV Lifestyles or something. They did like a whole thing on him about being like a mysterious, like wealthy guy, and like interviewed him and stuff. I was like, oh my gosh.
And there was some articles actually in the early, I don't know which it was, Vanity Fair. One of them was going to run an article. It was going to, like in 2002 or 2003, I think, that was going to blow kind of, and he was able to use his power to shut it down. So he was known about. It's just, and it's just so bizarre. I mean, all the details and all the, but even to, not that, I mean, that's not why I'm here to talk, but, to live your life having to always constantly cover your tracks and intimidate people. And I mean, you're wealthy. Enjoy your life. Don't, I don't know.
I just watched, I went on a crazy binge this weekend. I hadn't seen Casino before, so I watched Casino, then I watched A Bronx Tale, and then I watched Goodfellas. I think Goodfellas is the weakest out of those three movies. But I think it was in A Bronx Tale where Robert De Niro was saying that the mob guy was like, he ran the city out of like fear instead of out of love, and that's what ended up. Spoilers! It's an old movie. That's why the mob guy, I forget his name, like ended up getting shot in the end of the movie, but because he just ran with fear and it wasn't out of like, people didn't respect him out of love and care and all that. So it's interesting how people choose to live their lives like that, for sure. So with that, have you ever thought of like being like just Jeff Epstein, or does that?
Well, yeah. So that was. I mean, I always was known to my friends as Jeff. Although my legal name really is Jeffrey Epstein. But I didn't really think about changing my name. I mean, I joke about it on stage. When I'm working on material, like if I'm going to open mics though, and I'm not working on Jeffrey Epstein material, I would, for like in Portland or in certain places, I would just go up as Jeff E. Because if you only have 5 minutes, what's the point of wasting a minute or two of it, covering that old ground when I'm working on a set about my colonoscopy or about, or about, just something entirely different. So in Portland, often like hosts always ask me, "How are you going up as Jeff E? Are you going up as Jeff?" Because there's always a segment of the audience, if there's a real crowd there, that if you go up as Jeff Epstein or Jeffrey Epstein, you then have to,
do it,
that is the elephant in the room that always has to be addressed. So, for comedic purposes, sometimes I'll just go up as Jeff E to work on something else. But I realized it was the most memorable thing. I mean, I would have people, come up to me months and sometimes years later, say, "Oh, you're Jeffrey Epstein, the comedian." you know, so there was something about it that was memorable enough. Because as comedians, there's so many of us, and there's so many really good ones, really funny people, long term, like crazy good. But after a while, everyone's kind of forgettable. I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean, there's so many of us, and some aren't great, but there's so many that are so good. So what do you have that makes you unique? What do you have that makes you memorable? And for me, unfortunately or fortunately, that's what it is. Now, I mean, I'm still trying to make people laugh with material that isn't just that. But I realize that that's the most notable, and it's authentic. I mean, it's I'm not making that up. I mean, it's I'm making up. I'm telling stories about being dismissed from jury duty because of my name. That didn't happen. Okay, but it makes for a funny joke. But it's authentic because I do. I've had to navigate the awkwardness, the elephant that's always in the room. I mean, I have a business too. Which is somewhat, I have to reach out to people cold.
Oh, wow.
Either email or phone. And it's been pointed out to me, which I now joke about in my set. Dude, you realize that you're freaking emailing people. I'm getting an email from a dude named Jeffrey Epstein. In this, I mean, I'm sure there's been a lot of people that have totally deleted it. Been like, yeah, right, okay, like, so there is a, that's real. I mean, that's that is my reality. And so doing the Jeffrey Epstein material, again, there's a line, like people want to, like the comments on TikTok, people go to some of the most idiotic places, and I don't cross that line. I'm not talking about, there's a way to keep it where it's tasteful and where it's, not, not kind of,
it's a very fine line.
Not minimizing what, victims and the seriousness of what occurred and the craziness of all of it and the system that allowed it to happen. I'm trying to, there's a line that I don't go over and I don't want to. I mean, but it's sort of like it just hasn't gone away either. It just keeps rearing its ugly head. Not ugly, but it just keeps. And so, I mean, that I'm not sure if there was a question I was answering there.
No worries. So like with that, is it easy for you to be like a clean comic? Is that what was the choice behind being like a clean comic?
I think that's more authentic for me. I mean, I'm capable of throwing in a little profanity, depending upon who I'm around and whether the emphasis is needed, but I don't need it, and I think that profanity, is it becomes a crutch for a lot of comedians where it doesn't make a joke funnier. For some it does. I mean, there are some that it totally is part of their thing and it just works. But I mean, years ago, because even, guys like Seinfeld or certain comedians were able to be really funny and didn't have to rely on vulgarity or profanity. Now, I mean, I'm being a little judgmental, but there is something to be said for the art of just trying to be clever and write a good joke without being reliant on vulgarity or profanity. So, I think that for me, it's more authentic to be cleanish. I'll do some innuendo. I mean, depending upon what the topic is. Certainly not with the Jeffrey Epstein stuff.
Right.
That's that line that can't be. But I know that I'm not that person that's going to want to be telling vulgar stories. Some of the roasts I'll go a little further, depending upon who it is. I mean, I can do it, but I don't want to be known for it.
Right. It also comes like people. It might be a little bit of a stereotype, but people do come off a little bit more smarter when they have a bigger vocabulary and don't have to like rely on swearing
it's
just in conversation.
It is so hack. All right. I mean, and just too many open mic comedians, and even comedians that are, climbing, rely on profanity too much, and it doesn't help the joke.
Yeah.
There are rare occasions where it does, where it is part of the whole setup and the personality. But it's not it's not part of my kind of identity.
So what is this? What business do you run?
So I have So I've been an entrepreneur throughout my life,
Nice.
or I've had different. It's funny, I was in finance too. People are like, some of the comments, were like, "Were you in finance in New York?" Well, I kind of was at one time, but it's too scary. It's a segue, but there have been so many comments online about how I actually look like the other Jeffrey Epstein. That people have been pointing out, your head shape and your jawline. So I've been doing this set. I've been working out this set where I actually read some of the TikTok comments, some of the funnier ones on stage. And one of them was like, "Yo, you all look mad similar, or am I tripping?" And so many people commenting that, like, I guess that there is some similarities in the in our face and head. That was a little segue, but it's people have been pointing it out. They're like, "Yo, if you freaking dyed your hair gray, this would be a problem." Anyway, but so I have the business I have now is I help recover money for parties that are owed money that they didn't know about, or maybe knew about but forgot about, and that's an oversimplified version, but an example is that say someone that worked for a tech company was owed stock, and then they moved on from that tech company and took another job and kind of changed addresses or maybe even moved overseas, and then there's a legal process after a while that stock can become separated from them. And so my role is I study those assets that get separated from people. Sometimes it's dead people and you're finding their heirs. Sometimes it's corporations that merge, and I'm finding the successor corporation. I help reunite them with that stock or that money or whatever kind of financial asset it was. Different states have different names for it. They call it finders, investigators, asset recovery firms. So I have a niche doing that.
Wow.
And so one of my jokes is, imagine you get an email or a phone call from a dude named Jeffrey Epstein telling you that you or your family owe thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Oh my gosh!
I mean that makes the note from Sir Nelson of Nigeria seem kind of believable. And that line is actually as always hits pretty well. And that was actually reality of a client of mine pointing it out to me. He's like, when I first got your email, I was like, yeah, no way, freaking no way,
Oh my God.
So it's sort of part financial analyst, part detective, part salesperson. So there is an element of outreach. I'm sure people see my letters or they see my emails like, Jeff, what? What? But okay, fine. I'm at peace with it.
Yeah.
I've been successful at developing some niches where I reunite, people. It's a good hat to wear. I mean, it's sort of like the reverse of collecting money. You're actually helping, so it can be fun. I mean, it's when it's money or an asset that the company or the people or the heirs didn't know about. If it's something they knew about and they didn't realize they lost it, sometimes they'll resent me because they don't want to pay me to have to then recover something that they thought was always there. But every business has its challenge. I mean, you figure out where your sweet spot is. So no, I'm not a full-time comedian. Fortunately, I don't need to rely on it for income.
It's a tough road to do that, though. Anyways, to be honest, most artists have side jobs.
Comedians. Yeah, I mean, you have to be in such a rarefied air to have enough booking opportunity at high enough paying rates, to be a full-time professional at it. I mean, there's many that do it, but the gap in earnings between the top 1% and everyone else is just so drastic.
Yeah, it's like actual money and a drink ticket, basically.
I mean, yeah, comedy doesn't pay well until you're at a level where you can, maybe not everyone knows who you are, but you can tour the country and sell 3 or 4 shows over a weekend at a club.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're going to start getting paid well. And some comedians, never get there. Fortunately, I don't have to worry about that. I can treat it like an true expression, creative expression, and not be worried about the money.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if I was younger, it'd be different because then you can survive on, your 20s. I mean,
7 roommates.
that's sort of like, that's the life. And,
Yeah.
but when you get older, that's, if money was, if I had to scrape by, I mean, obviously when my daughter was growing up, the priority was providing, and holding up my end of the bargain. And, but if money was an issue and I had to scrape by, I probably couldn't justify, being out X number of nights a week, or traveling when you have bills to pay. It's, and comedy, the economics are probably the worst of any art form. I mean, music, which I know through my daughter, if you're actually, if you have a catalog, you can be getting paid even when you're not on stage. I mean, you get it, there's a residual to that, and the economics of music, or you can even be hired to perform night after night after night, for entertainment purposes. Whereas a comedian, you can't be. You have to be going somewhere else every time to tell the same jokes. So the economics of music are, far, I think, more conducive to earning a living.
Mm-hmm. I think that's why a lot of comedians have podcasts. And that's how I met Monica. Even Monica was my first ever client back in 2021, 2022.
Really?
Yeah. So we've definitely grown together in that sense.
I mean,
podcast-wise.
she's such a pro. I mean, but even comedians like her, there's the decision of, okay, are you going to go on the road?
Mm-hmm.
How much time are you willing to spend on the road? What price are you willing to pay, for the success and for the income?
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's different for everyone. I had a thought which just slipped, which happens when you're in your 50s. That happens.
Telling me, I have a grandpa with dementia right now, so trust me. I'm not saying you have dementia, but I understand that completely.
Yeah, no, there was another thought I had on that, and now I forgot. Oh, well, I mean, a lot of comedians also produce shows.
Mm-hmm.
There are other, like there's a full-time comedian I know in Portland, and a good chunk of his income is because he also produces shows, and is able to regionally work, Oregon, Washington, Idaho.
Nice.
And so there's other ways you can also, be part of the industry and get paid, or other than just your time at the microphone.
Yeah, that's what I do. That's why I opened the podcast studio, to gain more clients, have a more professional setting as well. But when I'm not doing my own show, I can produce for others and get paid doing that. So that's why I always tell people, whether you're young or old, like finding different ways to make it so you're still in that industry, even if you're not at the level you want to be at.
I mean, staying power is such a it is such a big deal in so many pursuits.
Mm-hmm.
If you're truly, like, whether it be comedy, music, even starting a company, if you have a vision, sometimes you just need to be able to kind of have a way to sustain it long enough to figure out how to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
And that can go for a comedy career. It can go for, I mean, it's also delusion too. I mean, so there's that. I mean, obviously people, either sometimes you just don't have what it takes or the goods. I mean, you have to be in music. I mean, you have to be freaking extraordinary to rise to the top. But there are people that are extraordinary that still need the staying power, So it's good to have. I mean, that was my point. But I use a lot of how I behave is from my experience in business over the years and learning how to take the long view of a situation, and not just kind of seeing the bigger picture and sticking around long enough, and also the importance of the relationships and treating people well, and just being a good member of the community that you're in, and in this case is the comedy community, because people know that, and they want, and they'll treat you well, and they'll celebrate with you, and they'll, you know, it's. But I learned that from business. I didn't really learn that from comedy. I learned it from other things that through. Like, I'd done a lot of things in my life where I was regretting how I handled myself, and I think over time, if you're self-aware, you then adjust. And for me, you learn how to have more grace and navigate, and so for me with comedy, it's sort of been this culmination of a lot of lessons in life, in terms of how to treat people, how to show up as just a positive, encouraging member of a community, how to put my ego aside a little bit, which is hard.
Yeah.
I mean, because you have to have some ego, otherwise you're not aspiring, But there's also that, okay, dude, freaking don't be an asshole. Set your freaking big ass head aside and go with this. So it's been interesting for me, like just kind of just on a life level, a human level. And you meet all kinds. I mean, most of the people I meet are very different than me, but I've learned to try, to embrace that and have grace, and be kind and respect the people pursuing what they're pursuing, and I'm pursuing what I'm pursuing. And again, that was a little segue that you didn't ask for.
No, that's good. That's also an interesting take, because I feel like, especially because it's January, the first month of 2026, everyone has their resolutions or whatever, and I feel like my resolution this year is to I feel like I've gone to the extreme of where I have too much grace. And I get, I'm not afraid to admit it. Sometimes I get pushed around because of that, right?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to find that middle ground of where I have a little bit more,
Yes, it is a balance. And you need them both.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've developed both. I mean, some of that East Coast, like, chip on your shoulder stuff, I got to sometimes put that aside, but sometimes it's helpful. Sometimes it's like, okay, this don't work, and in business too. But it's been, you learn and you grow, and that's, I'm not sure if I had another point in there. Again, another, too much, my brain is clogged, that it have to let shit go to then make room for new shit.
Yeah, fair enough.
But I mean, I'm cerebral. I mean, so I'm a thinker. I'm analytical, and so I take that approach to comedy. I mean, I'm not, I won't walk in the room trying to be the class clown. It's not my style. But I also will be very playful with people in certain communities. But you on stage, I become who I need to be. It's so some of it's real, some of it's just you have to become what you need to be to command a room.
Yeah.
Even if you're somewhat introverted. So that's I'm not the guy that's life of the party. But among friends, if there's something funny to be said, I'll say it.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Before comedy, was there other ways you may have expressed yourself, like artistically at all, or is just even venturing into any type of art a newer thing?
I mean, it was through my daughter, because for years and years she was always musical, and she was good, for her age, and she did dance, and so for like 20 years I would always, or like there were different stages. It wasn't about me; it was about me supporting her. And then when she became a teenager, she became really serious about music. So I was taking her to recording studios.
Oh, wow.
And helping her coordinate music videos as a teen, and helping like her pursue her dream. And then like when she was like 16 or so, we started going to like music, like songwriting, like conferences, and like film and sync, different types of music related industry things, so she could see them. And then she started, performing and recording. So it was sort of my helping support her pursue her dream was my thing,
Mm.
throughout, middle school, high school. And then, like now she tours occasionally, so I'll go with her as a tour manager.
Nice.
And I love that.
That's awesome.
I so love, and
you can open for her.
two different things. But
yeah, for sure.
so there was this interesting juxtaposition because for 20 plus years, Haley would come, I'd be going to all of her stuff. And then a couple years ago, she started coming to my shows.
Nice.
Like I was on at the Comedy Store in LA,
Oh, wow.
And she was there in the audience. She lives in LA. And I was at the Comedy Store in La Jolla too, and she was there with her boyfriend. And it was just sort of like this role reversal of her coming to cheer me on. And she gets such a kick out of it. She's a funny kid, and and she was the one like, Dad, let's do, let me start posting for you. So that was sort of my whole creative thing was through her. And I still, if you ask me, I don't know if this is what you want to hear, but I'm so much more committed to like watching her fulfill her dream, as a recording artist and songwriter than Jeffrey Epstein being a big comedian.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you'll follow me, I mean, to me, it's just if you asked me to weigh them, it's just so for a while my identity, like in our town in suburban Portland, I was kind of known as Haley's dad.
Oh, wow.
But that was like a fun thing, because she was just a great, people loved her and she was talented but she was really so like humble about it and nice. So people just knew, oh yeah, that's Haley's dad. And I was the guy that was lugging the keyboard and the speaker and whatever the gear.
Dang.
And that was my persona, and I liked it.
That's beautiful.
And I still like it. And I'm hoping she goes on tour this year, and I'll go with her.
That's awesome.
But in the background, so that's. It's not my own thing, but it was sort of when you have a kid that has a passion, you give them the tools and you support them. And then if they do the work, they show you, that they're serious.
Mm-hmm.
And she was. And, so I'm blessed. I was blessed. And I'm blessed to, be part of her life and her dream.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. And she's part of mine. I mean, it's just, look, this freaking whole TikTok thing. It's because of her.
Mm-hmm.
I picked out the footage, but she did all the editing. She set up the account.
Damn.
For the first couple weeks, I didn't even go on the account.
Yeah.
And then there was 1 weekend I was flying to visit my dad in Florida. It was like a Sunday night, and I get a text from her. She's like, Dad, have you been on TikTok? And I hadn't been yet. She said, you're going mega viral right now. It's like this. I'm like, oh.
Oh, wow.
Anyway.
Dang.
That's a good problem.
That's awesome. I've been trying to figure out different ways to give back to community or inspire others. And earlier, I guess the end of last year, 2025, I was asked to give a presentation at my old high school to the radio program. So things like that is because I wish I knew about podcasting or radio when I was younger. So because I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life until I was 18. And then I decided to do podcasting and radio, which my family was they were supportive of, but they're also how are you going to make this work, But if I had, it's not on my family at all. I just had no idea. But if I had figured out what I wanted to do earlier, I feel like my family would have just been as supportive as you are to your daughter. So that's
awesome. and yeah, I feel for young people that are talented or have passion but don't have the support of their family, their parents, because the parents or the family they just don't understand, or they don't have the vision, or they grew up with or they don't have the means. And so I really have a lot of, empathy for young people that don't get that opportunity or have to hustle in a different way to see it through. And if you have a kid that has a passion, whatever it is, some form of athletics or art or something, you have computers, if you can give them the tools, let them run with it,
Mhm.
you know, and eventually they'll show you, you know, we did things with her that, I mean, she ultimately wasn't interested in, and it was evident. So she stopped doing it, you know.
Yeah.
But the music was always, and the singing, it was always just common. So yeah, I mean, but even with comedy, if a young person wants to pursue it, there's so many outlets that if you start young and you committed and you really have that laser focus, you can, I mean, there's ways people can make a good living through comedy, writing, you know, producing. Who the heck knows? Things we don't even think of. Who would have thought this whole industry of like TikTok and you know, previously YouTube, and even before that, I guess it was it Vine?
Yeah, there's Vine.
You know, I mean,
I wonder if there's anything before
these
that.
ways that people built careers, and it wasn't even a thought. Was it, you know, that people 10 years old, 20 years old, 30 years older than you wouldn't have even like recognized as a possibility. There's going to be more of that.
Right.
You know, so you're getting your niche in podcasting now, and you know, and obviously there's different lanes that probably will more, you know, I guess fruitful. It but who even knows? I mean, like you were talking about, I know this isn't about comedy, but just the application of a business using podcasting as a way to build, you know, credibility with customers. 10 years ago,
yeah.
You know, and you kind of have to be a young person to be willing to go down that path. I mean, to be an older person in their 40s, you know, I mean, people do it, but anyway.
No, for sure. I hope I can inspire people to eventually, like, you know, either start a podcast or, you know, I'm open to friendly competition, like having people like understand how to open a studio even, because there's a lot of, or even like helping people. I've helped a few people figure out how to do like home studios and stuff, because a lot of this stuff here, I've kind of, like, this is all out of pocket. Like everything in here I own. Like there was a lot of trial and error of like finding what I actually needed or what I didn't need, because there was definitely no blueprint whatsoever on how to figure it out, you know.
And that's really cool. You know, when you do things, when you kind of are the one that's figuring out the blueprint, then you become valuable. And again, this isn't about comedy. This is more about life. Although there is a trend. I mean, but that's awesome. Like the not having the blueprint, and now you're the guy with the blueprint, or the person that has value to other people. Yeah. And you're so passionate about it too. What an awesome, when you can pay your bills doing something that you have, like, or, you know, passionate about, and, you know, is authentic to you. That's a gift unto itself. Yeah. You know, and then you're helping other people pursue something that they might have passion for. And so that's a kudos. That's an acknowledgement.
Thank you.
You know, and it's can be a bumpy path. But even with comedy, I mean, there's something to be said for being willing to experiment. And if everyone's over there, maybe you go over here, you know, and you know, if everyone's over in this room, maybe you go over and to the empty room and create something that people want to come to. Easier said than done, but there's something to be said for that. Do something novel, do something, you know, a little different than everyone else. Yeah. For me right now, it's my name. You know, eventually, you know, I have visions of potentially maybe having more of a business or finance type comedy angle, which I have not gone down yet, or a fitness and yoga type comedy angle.
Oh, nice. You do yoga?
I do, yeah.
Oh, wow. I grew up doing yoga.
And you know, I have a joke about it. You know, I did yoga teacher training, but I don't teach. But I did a comedic version of a yoga class as part of my teacher training. That was pre-comedy, and I loved it. And I was like, dude, you either need to teach yoga or you need to get your ass on a stage. And I wound up getting my ass on a stage. Yeah. But I always thought that, wait a minute, there's probably a niche for an entertaining comedic version of a yoga class.
Yeah, yeah.
In the right context,
for
you
sure,
know,
for sure.
And fitness. But that takes, you know, so I have these visions of taking comedy in a you know, off the path a bit, from then just being out at midnight in a club or in a bar or whatever, into more niche-y type situations, because I think they suit me better. But I need to establish myself as a real capable comedian first, in my view. And the obvious route was just going with my name and, taking the path and building the skills. But I'm a believer in finding unique lanes, and that's a trial and error thing. It's experimentation, and the willingness to look bad.
Yeah.
In the process of finding something beautiful.
You should look into. I don't know if you've looked into a lot of the stuff that Monica's done, but she has like a comedy like meditation album, and then she did this thing called, I think it's 60 for 60, which is a take on like the basketball thing, where she interviewed 60-year-olds about stuff. It was like, I think it's on Amazon. It's like a little docuseries.
I didn't know that.
So like, yeah, she's really big into finding that stuff too. So like, yeah, there's things there's definitely ways to do that, and I think that's the best way to like. That's why like I say like I'm a good DJ because I interview a lot of artists, so I know all the different types of music that people like and what to experiment with, So I like when things that you don't think would blend together can blend together or inspire each other,
Yeah. I mean, I get excited about that. The idea of just trying something different, creating something novel. I mean, in business, I try to do it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But that's how you discover some wonderful, opportunities. Yeah. Again, this is like a serious, kind of point. But yeah, I mean, my vision is, I'd like to keep doing and getting bigger comedy opportunities, but eventually take it in a more niche direction, where it's novel and just applying comedy in a place where maybe it's not quite as, prevalent.
Yeah, the bigger, platform and audience you have, the more opportunities come that make that thing actually come into existence.
Absolutely. More credible, we'll see. I mean, it everything takes an investment of commitment, energy, mental bandwidth, and you can't do everything. And comedy takes a lot of time. I mean, if you're serious, it so. And as a older, not old, but it's there's guys, there's comedians, they're out every night of the week. It just takes a lot of time and energy. The writing, the practicing, the time you spend going to the mics just to get the stage time. It's a commitment, and it should be. I mean, but making a decision to then go try a different niche it's all commitment, and I've learned that I can't half-ass something. If I'm going to do it, I got to make sure I'm in, because otherwise the outcome or the result won't be that worthwhile.
Right. So what's your process right now, and has it changed over the years on like how you go about writing, and then do you go right up on stage, or what has that kind of flow been like for you?
I usually write at home in the morning when my brain's like jacked on caffeine.
Yeah, there we go.
It just seems to be that's when my brain is like has the least amount of inhibitions. It's when my creative juices are flowing the best. And sometimes stuff will just come to me, and I'm like, okay, I got to try that. Or sometimes I'll have something in life that I'll make. Like when I had to go to like a financial planner about retirement planning, I was like, all right, there's some comedy in here. I got to figure out how to package it. Same thing when I had to go for my colonoscopy. I mean, which is comedians talk about that, but I found my angle on it, and it was a trial and error thing. It just was me writing stuff, trying it on stage, stuff not hitting well. There are some cases where I had other comedians actually also coach me a little bit, where they see something I didn't. I've benefited from that. Sometimes like I've taken topics where I've tried a set, didn't quite hit it right, put it away, and come back to it 6 months later and try it again a different way. But I have a cerebral approach. I'll write something, then I'll try and package it in a way I can deliver it. I'll try it 3, 4, 5 times, record it, and then play it back and see, okay, did it hit? What's missing? And then try it again. And that's how the set develops. And then over time, you remove things.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, yeah, I'm tired of that. Like even Jeffrey Epstein, I have new Jeffrey Epstein material that I've written in the last 2 months that I'm now incorporating or trying, and I've removed some old stuff, just because it's maybe I'm just not feeling it anymore. I guess that's my process. I'm not really someone that improvises on stage.
Mm.
Every now and then something will come out because and like, wait, they laughed at that.
Right.
There are some comedians that are just brilliant at that. They'll just riff, and they won't remember what they did. But but no, I'm pretty methodical, and I have like different files on my computer, the Epstein files. I mean, I didn't. There were so many comments about that. I shouldn't have said that. It's too hack, way too hack. But yeah, I have like all different files on my computer, like of just ideas and different, or writing at different stages, and then I'll go back to them, and it kind of goes in stages. Sometimes I'm not really writing because I'm just not in that mode. I'm just trying to like package up for shows and make things are tight, like I started producing a show monthly in Lake Oswego, which is it's a suburb of Portland.
Mm-hmm. Is there an actual lake there, I'm guessing?
Yes. Oh yeah, no, there is. And it's this cute theater. It's on it's called the Lake Theater and Cafe. It's this old movie theater that was renovated. Nice. And had this really like intimate event space. Like it's not tiny, like Comedy Cellar tiny, or like but it's not enormous either. It's like this like combination of like this intimate theater, but not too big, on the lake.
Nice.
And we can fit 90. I could sell up to 90 tickets, maybe 100 people with comps and stuff. We've sold that every month.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
So for me, that was a transition because I had to learn how to host, because I wasn't hosting before. And that's also a great exercise for a comedian, because the hosting is you have to regulate the energy of the room. You have to read the room. You're playing a slightly different role. So some of my work the last few months has just been to tighten up my material, to have like a strong 8 minutes at the top, get the room warmed up, and then just make way for the comedians that were really booked to make people laugh, like Monica. Like she headlined in October, she killed. I mean, nice. She's just such a pro. Got a few good Seattle comedians. Sam Miller, I don't know if you know Sam. Sam, yeah. He's out of Olympia. He's going to be our headliner in February.
Nice.
Got Kermit Apio.
Cool.
He's coming down in March. Got Lynette Manning coming down. She's she's up and coming out of Olympia, I think.
Cool.
So it's been fun to be the one that's putting the talent together, and then like creating. So that's different from creation of an event, and creating opportunity for other comedians, but also bringing it, because this town is a suburb kind of town where there really wasn't comedy there. So it was like, if you bring it to the people and you deliver a good product, then
they'll come.
So for me, that's been kind of fun. Like in my third year of comedy, actually creating a show, being responsible for hyping it and selling it out, and then procuring like quality comedians that fit the audience. So my point is that for a number of months, I was really just looking at, okay, I got to be tight on my hosting set. It wasn't about creating a whole new long, it was, okay, that was the priority of the moment. Now I'm expanding again because I'm getting new booking opportunities. So now I'm back into that mode of, okay, what can you, what new can you start writing, or what can you expand on? And one of it's crazy, but reading these TikTok comments on stage is actually funny. I mean, certain comments, I took a bunch, and I tried them to see, okay, how can I recite these on stage? Kind of like the old mean tweets, whatever show that was, Kimmel or Fallon, I forget. It's actually kind of me reading stuff about me, and then tagging it with something. It's actually working. So I'm like, all right, if I'm gonna if the show's long enough, I mean, if I have to do like a tight 8 or 10 minutes, I'm not gonna do that. But so that's part of the creative process. Like, well, what if I did this? What if I tried that?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Have you thought about like any like video production stuff? I feel like there's a lot of cool things you could probably. work with that. Even like the TikTok things, you could probably, have you ever watched those? I think it's by Vanity Fair, where they have like celebrities going on and like you type in their name and then whatever comes up first, you have to like talk about or whatever. Like it'll be like Hugh Jackman, and it's like, does Hugh Jackman actually have blah blah blah? It'll be like the top Google search results or something.
I haven't thought about it.
There's things. There's so
there's so many directions. I mean, I know a lot of other comedy producers that come up with these really interesting concepts for shows, and when they get traction, like like your guest,
Jose,
she came up with a concept.
Yeah.
She got traction, kept playing with it, and now it's at this point a year, I don't it's in multiple cities, and so there's so much creativity if you want to pursue it, and then that could translate, I guess, into more of an online content. I haven't gone that far, just this whole step to the world of TikTok,
for sure,
and posting on Instagram has been this big leap that, it was now or never, really. I mean, for a comedian named Jeffrey Epstein, it's like either do it now or whatever. Just it's this is your window.
Yeah.
And the window oddly continues to stay open, but yeah.
Yeah. It's like it's pretty up there with like Adolf at this point. But you can't. No one's name would be like. I guess Epstein is its own name, so it's not. You can't, like, just saying Jeffrey isn't a bad thing, but like together, it would have to be like Jeffrey Epstein, Adolf Hitler or something. It would have to be like
but even people with the name Epstein get joked about.
True.
I mean, I have a cousin, his name is Brandon Epstein, and he gets stupid comments, because of his last name. So it is up there. I mean, people have commented that there's actually a politician in Africa with the name Adolf Hitler.
Oh my gosh!
I've gotten zillions of comments about this on TikTok and Instagram. Apparently, and that's Hitler's his middle name, which is wild. Wild. And actually, it's like my parents 50 plus years ago unwillingly named me Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah.
This guy's parents had all the facts in hand when they named him.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, but there's been some crazy comments about, different names. And I joke about that. I mean, that, about it, that wasn't really, Epstein actually wasn't our family name. It was actually changed when my grandparents immigrated, which is true. It was a different name. And back then, Eastern European Jews they didn't speak the language, and a lot of them, didn't know what to give as their names, and they picked. So I joke about that because, I'll say that rumor has the name was actually Dahmer, and usually it's a laugh, but
that's good.
Yeah, I mean it's up there. I mean it's so.
Oh man,
it's just wild how one person becomes so like universally worldwide.
It's like being named, like, if you're named LeBron, people are like, really, your name's LeBron?
But like I went to London 2 years ago and I did comedy there.
Oh wow.
And it worked because it was still English speaking. They all knew who Jeffrey Epstein was. I mean, there were things I had to pull that were too American in my set that I didn't know if they'd get. But I mean, British people love crazy stuff like that, dark humor.
Well, Ghislaine, isn't she from the UK? Or
I think so. Yeah,
that's why they know.
Ghislaine, I think. Yeah. 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 It's I forget what we were talking about,
no
but
idea.
yeah.
Do you feel like you have to like stay up to date with everything that's going on with that?
I do.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, but it's probably just because I'm like, I don't know. I was just always like, yeah, I kind of feel like I do need, but the part of it is just that, that tabloid type, like just wanting to know like all the crazy stories about it.
Yeah.
But part of it is because I did want to know, like, okay, what am I missing? What's going on? What do I need to be aware of? I mean, it's just, I don't want to say fascinating, but some of the stories are just crazy.
Well, yeah, because it seems like it's a made up thing. It's like because people have heard about this stuff, whether it was him or someone else, with like islands and all this stuff forever, and then for a lot of conspiracies to actually be true, it's just like mind-boggling. Because then it makes people think, okay, what else is true? Or
I mean,
whatever.
this guy. I mean, it was clearly a master of blackmailing. I mean, I would, at least it would point that way of assembling goods on people that he could then use to leverage for something. But I mean, even how he got his wealth is really likely very shady.
100%.
You know, I mean, he was obviously a naturally smart person, but used those smarts in a very, you know, horrible way. But yeah, I would guess that most of his wealth came from either some form of blackmail activity, or some type of just shady, you know, dealings where he just swindled people, you know, separated people from their money in some sophisticated way.
Yeah.
Do I really know? No, but I mean, that seems what.
Well, that's probably interesting to a certain extent too. Besides the name, because you are in finance, you're probably like, what the heck? There's got to be, there's probably.
I mean, there's all these wild stories about, you know, being involved with intelligence. I mean, maybe he was. I mean, you know, I mean, it's not out of the question. I mean, there are operators that are and were like that, but I mean, how he winds up with that $50 million townhouse in Manhattan gifted to him from a billionaire.
Was that Lex Wexner?
That was Leslie Wexner. I mean, you know, or how certain other billionaires wound up paying him massive sums of money. It wasn't for you know, financial advice, you know, but who knows? I mean, that's not my job is to just not analyze that. There's a zillion other people, you know. It's just to try and
So actually, one last thing on your job. So do class action lawsuits fall under like figuring out if people are owed money or not, or does that not really?
I mean, there is an angle there. I mean, I think there are firms whose job it is to pretty much become a trustee and to distribute money. But you know what? That's another source where people potentially are owed money. Usually not a lot, but they don't know about. I mean, the most basic form of it is that every state has unclaimed property websites where people that might be owed a utility deposit that they forgot about, you know, it eventually goes to that local state. And I'm basically doing a much higher level version of that, where I'm dealing with large blocks of, you know, stock or securities. And there's laws around how it's handled and who's allowed to, you know, claim it. But yeah, class action. I mean, there's a lot of categories of potential monies that haven't found their way to who's owed them. You know, and there's specialists that do it. You know, and if it's big enough, you know.
What do you remember? Like what your first dream job ever was?
You mean what? That I actually did, or that I wanted to do?
You wanted to do.
Oh, when I was a kid, man, I thought I was going to be like some big ass businessman.
Yeah.
You know, I grew up in New York, and you know, was told I could do anything I wanted, and I had good parents, you know, and I thought I was going to be like some big, you know, high flying CEO or business founder. But I also thought it was weird because I also thought that I could be, as a kid, I also thought that I could be a comedian. I also had that dream too. So it's weird that actually happened in a very unintended way. I just wanted to be like some big, wealthy, high-flying businessman. Never really turned out that way. I mean, I you know, I had different roles in finance and consulting. I started a company in my 30s to make a beverage product.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I had a beverage product here in the Northwest. Wound up going broke from that.
What was it though?
It was a caffeinated water. I mean, it was meant to be a healthier energy drink where you could get the caffeine but not consume the calories or the chemicals or sugars. And it was the premise was the idea of having a cleaner, healthier energy drink. Many people have done since, but the way I went about it, I made a lot of mistakes. Didn't raise enough money, and made myself broke in the process. So I was an entrepreneur pursuing a vision, and I was up here in Seattle, hustling and in Portland and California. So I basically set myself back to where I had nothing, after that company, but that's the entrepreneur's path. I mean, you when it works, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
And everyone celebrates you. And when it doesn't work, it can be very uncomfortable and very humbling. And I had that experience, and I wasn't a youngster. I mean, I was in my late 30s, early 40s at that point. So I had to figure out, okay, what's next? And you have to become resourceful and hustle, and rob Peter to pay Paul a little bit, and I did, and I dug out, but obviously those are, when you have things like that hanging over you, you're not thinking about creative expression.
Right.
You're not thinking about, oh, I want to learn how to dance. I mean, you're thinking about shit. I got to pay my bills, and I better figure it out. So yeah, I always thought I was going to be like some big finance and business guy, and never really became that. But and I think it bothered me for a long time. And then as I got older, I just became more at peace and more self-deprecating about all of it, and sometimes life blesses you in ways you could never have imagined. And I'll cite my daughter as an example. I wasn't married to her mom, didn't see her coming, and what a freaking unbelievable blessing, the biggest blessing of my life, such a special human being. And, sometimes you just have to take what you get and then really work with it, and or come at peace with it and then keep going. And that's, again, I'm digressing here.
No, for sure.
But you asked me a simple question. But it's weird because when I was growing up, like the 80s was like this whole renaissance of stand-up comedy on TV. It just was like this. The clubs were popping up, and I was a teenager, so I was like, okay, I want to do that too. So I kind of had that too, even though it germinated, but I didn't really do anything with it till 40 years later or whatever, 35 years. It's weird, but
wow.
I'm at peace though. I mean, I have a comfortable life. I'm not wealthy, but I can afford to be generous to people. I can do what I want, and I hustle. I hustle in my business and I hustle in comedy.
Yeah.
It's a similar muscle.
Heck yeah. Damn, this has been great.
Thanks for listening, man. I know I go off on these freaking tangents, but I mean, I don't know. It's I've learned, and thanks for listening.
Of course, we're here to celebrate you, man. I like this all came together perfectly. Like what are the odds,
Well, I'm hopeful. I mean, I'm hopeful this, who knows what's going to, I mean, I don't, thank you for having me on.
Of course.
It'd be fun to have a good few years of comedy.
Yeah.
Good run.
I believe in you. That's why you're on the show.
Thank you, man.
And where can people find you? And is there anything upcoming that you want to promote at all?
Well, I am on TikTok, as you now know. It's Not the Real Jeffrey E. And on Instagram as well, same name, Not the Real Jeffrey E. Going to be performing, which I don't know, again, it may be too soon, but tomorrow night, Friday night, January 9th at Club Comedy Seattle. And got my own show I produce in Lake Oswego, Oregon, which is actually sold out, though, January 22nd.
Congrats.
But then the next one after that is February 19th, Lake Oswego, Oregon. For those of you living in Portland area, doing a monthly show there. And hoping to have, I'm going to be in Richland, out in the Tri-Cities, January 23rd, 24th at Joker's Comedy.
Nice.
Featuring out there. So for Washington State people. and hopefully a lot more dates to come, in our region.
Heck yeah. This is your camera. This is mine. This has been the NAST podcast with
Jeffrey Epstein.
and we did it.